Hey everyone. Hey everyone. Oh dear. Hello. Can you hear me? It looks as if my microphone is not working. So can someone tell me whether you can hear me or not? Please let me know, because it looks like you can't. Oh, you can hear me. Okay, great. Cool. Great. Hey everyone. Oh good. Thank you. Hi everyone. It's another live stream with me. I want to continue the questions and answers the questions that I was answering from last week that I never got to answer. And that's what I'd like to do today. I may have to end a little earlier than anticipated. I wanted to do an hour, but I have to go pick up my daughter from her new job. So I may have to end a little earlier. Let me open the document that had the questions in it that I didn't get to respond to from last time. But I will take questions from people in the chat. If you're in chat, if you're watching this live, I'd love to answer the questions you might have for me. But I would like to try to answer these questions that people have sent me or who asked on my Facebook from last time. So I'm doing well. Thank you for asking, Nikolai. No, I did not get tear gassed. We live in Seattle proper, but we do not live downtown or on Capitol Hill where all the stuff was happening. We actually live in a different section of the city. The city is quite large, and we live in Seattle, but like towards the outskirts, very close to the next city over from where we are. So we live about 10 minutes from downtown Seattle, maybe 10 minutes from Capitol Hill. But that was really downtown central, like Seattle. So we were not directly affected by all that stuff. Okay, so the first question, hey everyone that's watching. The first question that I have is it okay to cast more than one spell for the same thing? Okay, so yes, it is. However, it is my opinion that it's best to wait to see if the original spell that you cast, manifests before you cast another spell, unless you were doing like a long-term spell. So the first thing you would want to consider is, what is your intention of the spell, and is this spell going to need a lot of attention? And if it is, you might want to do a long-term spell as opposed to one spell, one spell and sort of not cast any other spells while you're still doing the work, the mundane work required in order for you to manifest your intention. If you find that it's a spell and you feel like you need to do another spell for the same intention, my thought is then the spell that you did, or the way you constructed the spell, or the type of spell was probably not the best way, was probably not the best type of spell, and you might want to rethink. But once you cast a spell, you want to give that spell some time to manifest, especially if it's something that you maybe have not ever worked for or done a working for before. You haven't done the prep work for it. The quicker your spell manifests, the more aligned you have been living with that intention to begin with. At least this is my opinion. So I really feel like, for example, if I'm going to cast a spell to bring in some money, a money spell or some wealth, but I haven't really been focused on making money, in the mundane or like doing whatever I need to do mundanely to make the money, and it really hasn't been on my mind, making more money, then, it may take longer for that spell to manifest. But if I've already been working and striving to make more money and making advances in whatever areas I'm able to make the money, then when I cast my money spell, it may manifest quicker because I'm already focused. I'm already aligned with making more money. I'm already aligned with prosperity and doing the work. Do you know what I mean? So if I find that I've cast that spell and I feel like I need to do another money spell, maybe a week later, maybe I didn't cast the right type of money spell. Maybe I should have done a long-term spell, a spell that takes a week to cast. Generally, I give unless I have written a specific time frame in the spell, I usually give my spell a lunar cycle to manifest. So if I cast my spell on the full moon, I give it to the next full moon to manifest. That's how I do it. So it is okay to cast more than one spell for the same thing, but you want to give that spell some time to manifest, and you want to really reconsider the type of spell you're looking to cast or the style in which you're looking to cast it. And maybe the next time cast a different type of spell. Ugh, I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Okay. Next question. Oh, man. Shadowlander in chat wants to know, do you know anything about sea witchcraft? Any suggestions on good websites to visit for more information on sea witchcraft? I personally have never identified as a specific type of witch, like a sea witch or an earth witch or anything. So I really don't have any suggestions on websites. Honestly, if it was something I was looking into, I would just Google it. Generally, I sort of feel like, a sea witch or an earth witch. My assumption is that they focus on working magic with the energy and the vibrations of the sea for a sea witch. So my thought is, start aligning yourself with the sea and the ocean and water, and study study the sea, like what sort of creatures live in the sea, what sort of differences are there between the different types of seas and ocean, what's the difference between a sea and an ocean. Study tides, study everything, reefs and corals and sea vegetation and everything. I would suggest. I mean, I don't know if there's one particular website, but for me, I would go to different sources and learn all the different types of things about the subject, the biology or oceanography, study that kind of stuff as well to get a good handle on what's going on within the sea and align myself with the energy of that. Obviously, spending time visiting the sea or the ocean as well would be a wonderful way to align yourself with the energy of that. Hi, Kimmy. Yeah, marine biology or oceanography or things like that. I definitely would do that as well. Yeah. Okay. Next question I received through an email. What should I do with my used spell components when I'm done with them? So the remnant. So you've done a spell and maybe you have some candle wax left over, or you've done a spell and you have some ashes from something you've burned, or you've done a spell that required, maybe you made a tea or a brew and you have sort of the used herbs. There's a few things to consider when you have spell components that you have remnants from a spell that you've done. I would consider what the intention of the spell was. What was it you were trying to accomplish through your magical working? And the way that you dispose of or get rid of the remnants should align with the intention of the spell. So if you were trying to, in my earlier example, to bring wealth or gain wealth, or you were doing a money spell, and maybe I used some herbs, I burnt some herbs, and maybe I had a candle that I burnt and there's just a little bit of wax left over. I wouldn't want to flush those things down the toilet. I wouldn't just want to throw it out in the trash, because the intention of wanting to bring things into my life, more money into my life, is in direct opposition if I'm throwing stuff away. I'm throwing away the remnants of the spell. That would speak to me as bringing something in only to just turn around and throw it out. And that's not what I want to do. So I would take those remnants and I might bury them in my backyard in order to grow. I might even, bury them in the garden with my other plants that I'm, nurturing to grow, because I'm looking to grow money into my life. I might put them in a little pouch and carry it with me, the remnants of the spell. Maybe I might add a bay leaf or other herbs that would also attract money or attract wealth, patchouli, things like that, and carry the remnants in that sachet or in that spell bag with me to attract it into, my life, into my experience. Or I might want to put them under the pillow, put them in a sachet, put it under the pillow, so that as I'm sleeping, I am, dreaming about bringing more money or more prosperity or wealth into my life. Maybe I might want to put it somewhere in my home that is the same as bringing prosperity, that I would align with prosperity or wealth. Maybe I have a little, shrine going on to draw in prosperity. Maybe I might want to put it there. So consider what your intention of your spell was and how you would want to continue the spell with the act of taking care of the remnants or the leftover components of that spell. You don't want it to sort of undo everything you've just done. You want it to continue your magical working. Does that make sense? Okay, let's see. What's the next question? Let me look in chat. Hey, Jason. Hello, Kimmy. I take the leftover candle and make it into a solid cologne. This way I wear the magic every day until I get what I want. Yeah, something like that. You definitely want to work with the components and understand that your spell isn't done, isn't complete. You haven't until you do something with the leftover components. Next question was, what was your first craft tool? Where did you get it? Okay, so let me think. What was the first thing I got? Oh gosh, the first thing. I think the first thing, I got a few things at the same time. I got my pentacle, the goblet that I used as my chalice. I think there was an incense holder, a burner. Yeah, I think those were the first three things that a bowl. I got a glass bowl to hold water in as well. Those three things I purchased for myself. They weren't very expensive. And I got them at a witchy store called Infinity, which doesn't exist anymore. It was in Massachusetts, in the city I lived in. The goblet was a glass goblet. I don't even have it anymore because it broke. It was green glass goblet that I used. And a bowl, a clear glass. It was like a dessert dish that I used to hold water. And the pentacle that I still use. that pentacle right there was one of the very first things I got for my craft, specifically for my craft. Other things that were given to me, I had a statue of Bast that was given to me by someone. I had a candle holder of, I think it was Isis. That broke, the cat broke that, but that was given to me. I had different things that were given to me, things that I purchased in like at flea markets and yard sales and thrift shops. Yeah, I just found things. I'm always, always have my eye open for different things that I might use in my craft. But I don't have a lot of tools that I use anymore. I have a very few. I don't use a chalice or a goblet anymore, really. Yeah. Shadowlander, I have 2 books about sea witchcraft and a book about merfolk. Nice. High spiritual growth. Spiritual growth asks, you ever feel unsure about your craft? I don't know if I feel unsure about my craft. I do know that my craft goes through changes, and just like the seasons, there are ebbs and flows within my own energy and within my own craft. And I think that's a natural thing to happen for everyone. I think that getting in tune and getting accustomed and recognizing and becoming aware of your own energy flow when it's stronger and when it may be weaker, or when you feel more proactive as opposed to introspective. I think these are important things to be aware of as witch. I think and believe that when we become more aligned with what's going on within us, then it enables us to be more successful with our own magical castings, with our own spell castings and magical workings. My feeling is that you don't want to be very proactive with your magic when you're feeling very introspective, because not only are you going to need to overcome any challenges that are already present within whatever it is that you want to change or whatever it is you want to manifest, you have that resistance within yourself because you're feeling introspective. It's a time for you to go within. And here you're deciding and planning on doing something very proactive. You're going to need to overcome that own resistance that you're holding within you in order to then get out there and then overcome the other resistance that you may encounter when you go to cast your spell or do your magical working. Working with the flow of energy, working with the path of least resistance is going to enable you to manifest your intentions quicker and more successfully than if you have to traverse a path of obstacles and challenges in order to manifest something. So being aware of your own energy and your own, seasonal ebb and flow of your own power and your own magic is important. So, I mean, I don't think, for me, I've been really unsure about my craft, but I've been aware when there have been moments of more introspection and more proactive feelings. I've always also been aware of times of transition when my belief and my philosophies have shifted from one way to another. And this big move that we made now going on 2 years this July from the East Coast to the West Coast was a huge transition for me. I didn't feel unsure, but there was an uncertainty as to which direction my own craft, my own practice was going. And that was very unsettling for me. So it wasn't maybe that I was unsure. It's just there was a lot of uncertainty in the future. And I felt transitional and I felt unrooted. I didn't feel grounded, no matter how many grounding and centering exercises I did. So maybe, that could fall under that sort of category. It's overwhelming. It was for me. And it really made me question my own confidence in my own power and my own practice. Nikolai, how are the neighbors treating you? Do they know you're a witch? And do they look at you with suspicion? Well, it's strange here living in Seattle. It's very different than living in the East Coast. There is really a sense, at least what I've encountered, is here there's a big energy of new age energy. And there's not at least I haven't come across many Christians. I know they're here. I know they're here because down the street a little ways there's a Christian church, but I think it's a Korean Roman Catholic. I'm not even sure. But my neighbor across the street, she's from Italy, and she has a statue of Buddha in her front yard. My neighbor over there, they're Asian, and I'm not sure what they practice. The neighbor across on the other side of us is very sort of introverted, and she doesn't really socialize with many people. And then the man that lives, or the neighbors that live like diagonally across the street, we don't see him very often. So I don't know if they know I'm a witch. They don't look at me with suspicion. It's very different than when we lived in New England, where there was a very strong Christian population there. I mean, on the street near us, like one of the cross streets, there were 7 churches on just one street. Here, there's one over there, and I don't know where the other nearest, I'm sorry, there's 2 down the street, but I don't know where there are any other churches. So it's a different thing. So no, I don't know. I don't know if they know I'm a witch, and they don't look at me with suspicion. Tisha, hello. You want to know, what candle can I burn for a loved one who is sick? You should do the online coven. Are you still thinking about it? Okay. For a loved one who is sick, personally, I would burn a blue candle that I had either imbued with healing, or if you pray over it, or petition whatever god or goddess you might be working with, your matron or patron. But I would use a blue candle, and I personally would anoint it with lavender or chamomile, or whatever sort of essential oil you align or correspond with healing. And I personally would etch their name in the candle. And if you have a picture of them, I would either put it beneath the candle, although be aware that wax may drip on it if you put the candle right on top of the picture, or you can put the candle holder on top of the picture or near the picture. And I would do some sort of chanting over the candle while I'm looking at their picture. That's what I would do. I was thinking about the online coven, and I decided not to, because I wasn't sure I could commit the time and the energy to it. But what I am going to be doing with my release of my upcoming witchy book, which will be going to beta readers in a week or 2, is once I publish that book, I will be creating a Facebook group that will be sort of as a support for those who want to go through the book with me. So once I publish the book, there'll be sort of like support or classes that go hand in hand with the book in a private Facebook group or community. Maybe, yeah, probably a Facebook group. that's what I plan on doing. Miss Debonair, are there any things you do to get into the mood or right energy for a spell? Are there things I do to get into a mood or the right energy for a spell? Okay, so first you need to know what your intention is for your spell, right? Generally, I find that my spell and mood kind of go hand in hand, right? So I generally don't just cast for just because I want to cast a spell. I usually, something is going on in my life where I feel there is a specific situation that could require a boost of magic. So I'm already working, or I'm already focused on the intention. I'm already doing something or focusing on something. And I feel that that thing that situation, that project, whatever it is, could use a sort of kick in the butt with a spell. So I'm already in the frame of mind and in the mood to do that spell, because that's been what I've been working on in the mundane world. But I mean, to get in the right mindset or the altered state of consciousness, generally a meditation prior to it, or something that, like music does it for me, shifting into that kind of magical mindset because I listen to specific music to get me there is helpful prior to working on it. But really thinking and contemplating and preparing and focusing, I'm already doing all that work, so that intention of that spell is already in my head, is already something I'm thinking about and working and feeling about, because I generally don't try to do a spell that is so far disconnected from what I'm already in that place that it would be hard to get from here to way over here. It's easier to get from here to here and already be working on that. So, I mean, if you are thinking of doing a spell, or you feel motivated to do a spell for a certain thing, I would suggest that you start working and focusing in the mundane in your daily life on that thing that you're going to be casting, because then you'll be sort of pumped up or built up about that thing, Does that make sense? Where were we? Okay, Nikolai, I think any color candle will do as long as your intention and mood is right. Gold is healing, white and pink are great. I like white, but I like blue best for healing, but that's my personal association. I think there is a traditional association with blue for healing too. Spiritual growth, you don't wear witchy clothes and tell everyone. I don't know what that was about. Wonder Woman, hello. Is that last comment about a ritual to mourn a person? Is that last comment about a ritual to mourn a person? I don't know what last. Oh, wait. Okay, Wonder Woman. Okay. I just lost my 85-year-old mommy last week. Even though she was Jewish, I am a practicing Wiccan. Can you discuss a Wiccan mourning ritual, please? Okay. I am not certain exactly how a specific Wiccan mourning ritual would be, other than generally Wiccan, specifically Wiccan rituals tend to have the same sort of template. The calling of the quarters, the casting of the circle, the invoking or evoking goddess and god, evoking the quarters into circle, and then doing your rite or your spell crafting, having cakes and ale, getting a blessing from the god and goddess. Sometimes drawing down the moon would be prior to the cakes and ale. releasing of the quarters, releasing of the evoked god and goddess, and opening the circle. And your requiem, or the morning ritual, would happen in the center of, you know, that template. And generally what I would suggest during a requiem or a morning ritual is, you know, releasing the individual, your 85-year-old mommy's spirit, her essence from her physical body, and sending up blessings, maybe a reading of some mythology that would go with it, depending on what pantheon you work with, what god and goddess you work with. A severing of ties to release the spirit from the physical realm and ease the spirit into the spiritual realm. Writing, you could even write things you wish you could have said, or things or wonderful fond memories you may have had. Poetry that you'd want to read for your mom. Anything like that would really help you, the living, as well as sort of aid the release of the individual spirit, into sort of guide the spirit into the spiritual realm and ease the transition. That's what I could think of. But, you know, honestly, I think it's going to be important for you, if you're going to do something like that, to make it very personal to you. I mean, if you're working with a coven, then obviously the coven would have something set up for you to do that, you know, to have or hold a requiem or a morning ritual. But the basic template of that is going to be, you know, the basic template in all rituals. It's just the meat of it that would change from coven to coven or person to person, depending on what your beliefs are in regards to your mother's spirit and what you believe happens after the death of the physical body. The first morning ritual I have learned is covering the mirrors with black cloth. Ms. Debonair, I see, I understand. Yes, that makes sense. Thank you. Nikolai, it's usually 9 days of novellas, no TV, no entertainment, and the body is usually in the living room 3 days, but it's 9 days of family and friends praying. That's what Nikolai suggests. Okay, the next question is, do you use astrology in your crafts? I generally don't. I don't know much about astrology. The only thing I really sometimes consider when looking at correspondences is the days of the week and the hours, the days and hours, to align my spell with, you know, the specific hour and the specific day that would correlate or would correspond with the intention of my spell. But sometimes for me, that's not always something I can do. If there's a spell I feel that needs to be done ASAP, and the best day is Thursday and it's Saturday, I will do it on a Saturday. My biggest correspondence that I generally work with, as opposed to hours and days, is the lunar phase. So looking for a full moon or a dark moon, or sometimes a new moon, are the phases that I generally work with most. But again, even then, sometimes if a spell needs to be done now, I won't wait for the next full moon, especially if it just passed. So for me, it really depends on the intention and the urgency I feel would allow me to either work with the hours, the days, or the lunar phase. But that's me personally. Fortunately, no coven, a solitary witch mirror. My grandmother gave me a giant wall mirror that was hers through her life, that gives me comfort and connects me to her. So not covering that, but thanks. Yeah, I know I've heard suggestions that mirrors be covered. And I personally, I have this sort of contradicting feelings about that within myself. I understand and I acknowledge, and I have experience with mirrors being portals between the physical realm and the unseen realms. And when someone dies, covering the mirror so that the spirit of the deceased has time to adjust to the unseen realms, basically working through the death process so that they can, work through what they need to work through. I understand that and I recognize that so that they can adjust before I make contact. And then taking the cover off of the mirror so then I have the ability to contact that individual through the mirror. I understand that and I acknowledge that. Then I think, well, if the mirror is a portal to the unseen realms, why can I not then use the mirror to aid the spirit of the deceased to pass through the mirror to the unseen realm? Sort of use the portal, use the mirror to aid and guide the spirit to pass through, which then I wouldn't want to cover that mirror, because then covering the mirror may stop the spirit from leaving and going into the other realm. And covering it would just trap them here in the physical realm. So, I would say the individual should follow whatever makes most sense to them. The covering of the mirrors is to let the dead know that someone is dead in the family. My thought is the dead don't need to know. They already know. That's my feeling. I mean, yeah, my feeling is the dead already know that someone is dead. Just as the living, if the living is connected to the individual who has physically died, if you're really aligned and aware, you can feel that. You can feel the moment of death. So if the living can feel the moment of death, then my feeling and belief is that the dead can feel it just as much, if not more, because they are spirit. They're of spirit. I'm physical. I can feel when the spirit leaves the physical, and the spirits should, my belief is that they feel when the spirit leaves the physical, because they're spirit. They know when a family member has joined them, just as I know when a family member has left. That's my belief. And the last question I have here that someone sent me was, do you think it's necessary to cast a circle when you do spells or other magic? Necessary? No, I don't think it's necessary to cast a spell. I mean, I don't think it's necessary to cast a circle when casting a spell. But it is helpful, and it's going to really depend on how you or the spellcaster views the circle. Are you looking at the circle to be a container? Or are you looking at the circle to be a shield? Or are you looking at the circle to be both container and shield? Are you looking at the circle to keep things in, or to keep things out, or to keep things in and out? I think that when the witch is practicing magic of a delicate nature, or if they're practicing magic in an environment that may be in contrast to what they're trying to accomplish, or if they're concerned about outside energies contaminating what they're working on, or interfering with what they're trying to manifest, then casting that circle is going to be beneficial. Because when you cast that circle, you're creating a space that is sort of separate from the collective reality. You are creating, if done successfully, you are creating a time that is no time, a space that is between all spaces, and that the only thing that exists within that circle is what the witch brings with them into circle. So that if you live somewhere where your neighbors think witchcraft is of the devil, or you live somewhere where you think there are other spiritual entities that might try to interfere with what you're trying to accomplish, then casting circle can be very helpful and can be very beneficial for you. But if you already have a established sacred space where you are constantly doing magic, and is constantly aligned with your intention, and you already have wards in your house and protection in the house, and you're doing this spell in the house, and you have your sacred space established in your house, then maybe casting circle then might be overkill. Maybe you don't need that because you've already created this circle in your house. Do you know what I'm saying? So I really think it's not necessary, but in some instances, casting a circle when you do spell or other magical workings can be beneficial and helpful to the witch. And that was the last question I had. So let's see what's going on here. So Nikolai uses astrology. It will drive you crazy, but it's the as above, so below. Okay. Try casting a spell on the void course moon. It's so difficult. Yep. Astrology gives the spells a flavor. I believe it does. I'm sure it does. Hello. The aging witch. Are you reading the crone, another type of magic? Was that, Nikolai, was that a question for someone in chat, or are you asking me? Oh, okay. Oh, maybe that was to me about aging. Okay. Are you reading on the crone and her type of magic? Are you dreading the crone? Is your magic less than before, like when you were younger versus you in the present? Oh, I'm asking about me. I figured that out after. Thank you. I am not specifically reading about the crone. Actually, I'm in the middle of reading Aradia, the Gospel of Witches. I'm in the middle of reading that as my nonfiction book, and I have a fiction book that I'm reading, a Dean Koontz fiction book, because I usually have a nonfiction and a fiction book that I'm reading. I haven't read anything specifically on the crone and specifically her magic. I am not dreading the crone at all. I've had experiences before or during the transition from moving from New Bedford here with visions and meditative journeys. And I've met what I've labeled the hag. But clearly the hag and the crone are very similar, if not the same energy or entity. So I've had experiences with this spiritual entity or archetype. And at first she was rather frightening, but not so much anymore, although there is some still frightening aspects to her. But I'm not specifically seeking her out or reading about her. Is my magic less than before? No. I think my magic is more. I think with experience and wisdom, my magic has been much more efficient, much more successful. Manifestations happen quicker. But I think that's because my life is more in aligned with my truth, capital T, than when I was younger. I think I'm more self-aware and self-knowledgeable. I think working through personal shadows and looking to integrate fragmented aspects of my spiritual self have been helpful. Being able to live in accordance with my own spirituality as opposed to having to live under the roof of someone else's spirituality and religious beliefs, and having to be who they want me to be and not who I am, has enabled me to really come into my true witch self and continue becoming the witch I'm meant to be. So my magic is a lot more powerful now than it's ever been. Mrs. Debonair, how do you know what deities to use in a spell, and how did you find your special deity in the event you have one or more? There are two different ways you can approach this, or maybe there's more than two different ways. Maybe there's many different ways. But my suggestion is, if you are not working with a specific deity or deities, you can do research on the deities that are aligned with the spell's intention that you're looking to work. So, for example, if you're going to do a love spell, you could research Aphrodite, learn everything about Aphrodite, and then petition Aphrodite to help you with the love spell. I would caution, however, when you're working with the energy of gods, of anything divine, that you do not do so in a haphazard way, that you approach the gods with respect and honor in any way that you would approach any sort of divinity. If you aren't an individual that generally works with deity, then before you start haphazardly petitioning or evoking deities for spell working, you want to gain some knowledge. I mean, to know. If you think about the witch's pyramid, to know, that would include to know as much as you can about the deities before you evoke them in your spells. So that's what I would suggest if you're going to just work with deities within spells. You want to examine how you perceive deities, how you perceived the gods. If you are an individual that just that perceives the gods as thought forms and projections, then your attitude and your approach to them may be different than someone who believes the gods are individual spiritual beings of divine nature. So it really, number one, you should consider how you view the gods, and then however it is you view the gods would then dictate how you're going to interact with the energies of the gods. When I discovered, I've had special deities, goddesses and gods, matrons and patrons that I worked with. The first being Bast, the Egyptian goddess Bast. Then I worked with Isis and Thoth. And after that, I worked with Danu and Cernunnos. And now I don't work with any specific deities. I don't have a matron or patron deity at this point. But every time that I worked with a specific deity or had a matron or patron, it was sort of like me calling out and the specific god or goddess responding to me. But I didn't say, oh, I want to work with Bast. Oh, I want to work with Isis, or I want to work with Thoth. It was more like, I'm looking for a guide. I'm wanting a personal god or goddess to work with me. I'm looking for guidance. I'm looking for this personified god or goddess to help me, because I came from a Roman Catholic home and a Roman Catholic religion when I was growing up to have a personal God. You know, we had God, the Abrahamic God, and then Jesus was my connection to that. So I was used to that. That was something that was comfortable for me. So when I started on this sort of, you know, when I started to study Wicca, I needed that. So Bast was the one who sort of met my call. And there was signs for me, there was indicators that she was meant to be the goddess I worked with. I had visions, I had dreams, and then there was things like, you know, I would be looking through books and her name would pop up. And I was always interested in Egyptian mythology through my childhood. And I was going through a divorce. So I definitely wanted a goddess. Because I was turning sort of away from the Abrahamic God that was so male. Every God there and every idea was the father. There was no mother. So I was looking for a mother. That's why Bast came into my life. And then when it was Isis, someone did a reading and her image would pop up everywhere. And people were suggesting I read this book. And I don't remember the name of it, but it was one about Isis and things. There was just clear signs that she was the one that I should work with. Same with Thoth. I found I was walking on the beach. I lived by the ocean at the time. And I found a seagull's skull. Right at my feet when I was walking along the beach, and it looked like the beak of Thoth, and there were signs for that as well. And that's always been how I have been led to what god or goddess I should work with. But that's my personal experience. Okay, I got what else? Nikolai, do you believe that we witches come from Lucifer and Diana, the souls of the witches, that is? Were you a teenage witch? I was not a teenage witch. I was not a teenage witch. Do I believe that witches come from Lucifer and Diana, the souls of the witches? I don't know. If you're talking about Lucifer, the idea of the light bringer, and Diana, I mean, I am reading Aradia, right? And I'm not too, I'm halfway through. And there's a lot of side things to read, like commentary about it. I don't know. I don't know, Nikolai. I don't know. I'd have to contemplate that more. I mean, the idea is sort of romantic in a sense, that our souls come from Diana and Lucifer together. I mean, it's mythology, right? So it's very, I can romanticize about it, but I don't know if I truly believe that to be how witches came to be. I don't know. What about Lilith? Maybe Lilith has some, I've heard her being the mother of the witches, the first woman created and then banished because she was so independent. Again, mythology. I don't know. I asked the question because Aradia is the product of Lucifer and Diana, and then Aradia came, and then Laverne came. I don't know. But you know what? I'm going to have to end the live here because it's 2:53 and I have to go pick up my daughter from her job. I have decided that I'm going to be starting a series of lives in the future. I'm not sure what Obsidian and I are going to be doing, if we're going to be able to do anything as a joint endeavor because of her new job. But my next live will be on Friday, the 26th So not next week, but the week after. It'll probably be again at the same time at 2 here for me in Pacific Standard Time. So it'll be 5 for people on the East Coast. I'm not sure what I'm going to be discussing. I may see if I can get a guest to come on with me. I don't know yet. If you have a topic that you would like me to discuss in that live stream, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what your thoughts are, because I'm going to do live streams for now before I start making videos again. But if you're interested in videos, I do have a video each week in my Facebook group. It used to be called The Witches. It's now Practical Witchcraft. You can Google Facebook groups, Practical Witchcraft, and I do release a video a week over there on different topics. But that's about it. Until next time, I love you all. Thank you for being part of this Facebook group, this live stream. Yay. Yeah, much love, everybody. I love you. Blessed be. Goodbye.